Okay, ladies, we are ready to do, look, it's time for the last square in our little bit. So this was number 1, this is number 2, this is number 3, and we're now ready for 4. Where before we picked up and then cast on. We used a couple of different methods. We did long tail cast on in the beginning, and then we knitted up and we knitted on, if you remember, and then we knitted up and cable cast on. And each of those gave us a different look and a different outcome and appearance from the public side and from the private side. In this square, we're going to fill in this section this time. So we're going to have to knit up stitches in the cable cast on and in the long tail cast on. And this particular square is predicated, for lack of a better word, designed on an even number of stitches. It is not an odd number, which we have been working with up into this point. So on this particular one, this was square number 3, which has this centered stitch. On square number 4, you can see that there is no centered stitch. So it is worked on an even number of stitches. There's no reason that mitered squares can't be worked on an even number of stitches, just like an odd number, except that it would not have that centered stitch. Is it necessary for that centered stitch to be a knit against the garter stitch? No, not at all. It can happen, but it doesn't have to be that way. And in fact, you could work garter stitch just knitting everything all the time, and that would be fine as well. I wanted you to have experience with this. We are going to pick up the 23 stitches. We will pick up one in the middle, and then the 23 stitches out the other side. On the first row back, I have you decrease in the middle, and this time we're going to put a marker on the needle, not on the stitch like we've been doing, like here, not on the stitch, but actually on the needle, so that when you come up to it, you will SSK before the marker and knit 2 together after the marker. So we're going to do some picking up. It would help if I could find the tail. Some picking up in the cable cast on, which looks a little bit different than our normal cast on, our long tail cast on. Not as forgiving or as flexible. You can see, look, it's fairly sturdy. So if I wanted a sturdy edge to cast on, this might be a great one to work with. The knitted on cast on, if you remember, was way giving. This one, not so much. And I've looked at it and paid attention, and I'm going to start to pick up. I want to pick up out here on the edge, go into the stitch and pick it up. Hold on. Now, I've already counted my way down, and I have to make sure that I get all of the stitches that I want. The reason I'm out here on this little edge is I want to pick up these little bumps, these right here at the base. That seems to be the best outcome with this cast on. Is it invisible? Nope. Not sure that it can be. A little background noise for your fun. So I'm well, looks like maybe I came a little too far in, doesn't it? Did you see how I had that big gap when all of these were bent over? Ouch. I want to be out. See that bump right there? That one. I want to be at the base of it. So there's the base of that one. Don't get my tail caught. Base of that one. The base. So when I'm looking, see the little smile? It's right on top of the smile. See this little smile? There's a little frown right there. Right there's the little frown. There's the little smile, and it's the bump above. Oh, we could come up with some horrible analogies for this, couldn't we? That way, when I pull it, look at, there's a bump and a space addressing the needle. That's going to look more like our regular garter stitch, not have a big flat spot, like what the heck happened there. Got mashed flat. So I am just finding, there's my frown, there's the smile next to him, and there's the bump on top. So there's the smile, and there's the bump on top. When I do it that way, is it invisible from the back? It's pretty nice up against the front. Invisible from the back, no. We have to do something with the rest of that cast on. But it's pretty tidy. So I'm going to continue to knit up. I want to get around the corner so I can show you that when we're back into long tail cast on, we're coming at it from the center going out this time. All I'm doing is finding the smile. I can see the smile right there. See the smile right there? When I say a smile, it goes this way, like a U. We could call it that. I like smile better. Okay, so there's the smile, there's the frown, there's the frown, there's the smile. A little bump above. A little bump above. Almost down to the middle here. There's the smile, little bump above. Now let's count. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 23, yay! I am going to, I could choose to pick up clear over here to try to pull it together. I think I'm going to choose to pick up in the base of this one, that knit stitch. Right there, I'm going to come into the side of that, not totally the base of it, just off to the side. I don't want to create a hole right there, although I could come back and cinch it up later. So now I'm going to come over here. This is my long tail cast on edge, and if you guys remember, we need to pick up the outline stitch. Don't want to split my yarn. The outline stitch. The outline stitch. I'm skimming across the top of it. Just the outline stitch. So there's my outcome, and then I get that on the back, almost like a little ridge. I don't want to pop all the way through. I'll show you. If I go all the way through and pick up the outline stitch and the bump behind it, then I get kind of a, I'm not real sure, see, maybe. Pushes a lot more to the back than I'm maybe happy with. So I think I'm going to stick with that outline stitch across the top. Now, I did not mark the center stitch. I'm actually going to decrease it. So you could, I think I actually tell you what to do, like knit 22 and knit 2 together or something like that. Something along that kind of line. So just picking up the outline stitch and knitting up stitches and making sure that your count is what you want. So we want to squeeze this together in the middle on the next row back, and then set about following the directions. There was some questions or comments or whatever about picking up for the border. So I want to do a little bit of that for you as well. I'm going to use the other end of my yarn and pick up for the border. I have you start in the corner. One stitch. Now I wish I'd written off the instructions. Oh. So when you're picking up along the edge for the border, we're going to do, if you remember in class on Friday, we talked about garter stitch. One stitch is the size of 2 rows or 1 ridge. So to be able to pick up and knit off of garter stitch, I need to pick up 1 stitch for each ridge. And that will pick up, no worries, it'll pick up fine. So I'm going to come out here. There's a ridge. There is a ridge tucked up underneath that. Why, I don't know. Yes, I do. It's the last little ridge. And then there's the point right here. Do you remember when I said do not pull the yarn through and then, remember it was like pull straight up on it when it was on your needle? The reason for that is now we're ready to do the corner. We're going to put the quarter stitch in there. I'm going to pull the tail out of the way, go straight through. I have to poke it. And fish the corner stitch up. And look, there's no extra little knot. It's all tidy. Then I'm going to come on the side. Right here, up underneath this edge, is the first ridge. We need to knit up in that. And we're going to do that all the way along. It is, once upon a time, do you guys see the little belly button? That's the way I was taught. Do you see the little belly button drawn together right there? You poke straight into the hole, straight through to the back. That's the way I was taught to pick up on garter stitch. And when you do that, there's nothing wrong with that. And in some situations, it's wonderful, but I want you to see what it does. There is a knot. Do you see the fabric that gets shut to the back, shoved right back there? Do you see it? Do you see that up here? It's flat. That doesn't happen. So rather than dive into the fabric and go from the front to out the back, I'm going to slide up under that little smile on the edge. So see the frown? Go right next door and knit it up. Right next door and knit it up. And that produces a much flatter, more like in keeping with the knitted fabric, appearing join. Or I think it does. To my way of thinking, I like that it looks like that. So every time I'm looking for the frown, there it is, the one that goes upside down, and I go right next door so that I'm right out on the edge. Now, I'm not fighting this. That's not any fun. I'm going to actually come over here to knit them up. Can we do this throwing? Of course. It's just a matter of finding the frown, coming over to the edge, sliding it under, and pulling it through. Finding, sliding it. Whoa, hold up. There we are, moving along. Now, on the instructions, after you're all done, you have one in each of the four corners. On the next row, you're going to purl the stitches except for the four corner stitches. You could mark them. To me, they're fairly evident, but you could mark them so you purl everybody except the four corner stitches. And then you're going to make an increase on the next row on each side of the corner stitch. So when you come back around, there's my little corner stitch. I'm going to do an increase on this side and an increase on this side. I picked it up and twisted it, picked up the loop, make one, as many people call it. Not necessary. You could, don't knit in the front and the back of the corner stitch. It makes it, kind of tweaks it up. So you could knit in the front of the back of that one. I would lift the bar or backwards loop or do an increase that uses the space, not the stitch. When I say that, an increase, I'm going to turn it around. I have my needle totally engaged. Okay, so when we're knitting back, first row you've purled. I know I'm knitting. but I just turned around. You guys realize what just happened. I turned around. So when you would come at it, you need that extra row. I'm going to slip this over so it's out of the way. So when I would come to, shall we make a corner stitch just for fun? Hold on, and I'll make it look like it. Hold on. Okay. Wait until we get there. You guys will be like, oh, yay. Okay, so we're going to pretend there's the corner stitch, the little knit stitch. Come into the side, pick it up and knit it. That's lifting the bar. Knit the corner stitch. Do another one on the other side. Make one on the other side and go back to knitting. That will miter that corner for you. Obviously, it's not the corner right here, but that will miter the corner. If you keep it in a knit stitch, it'll follow all the way out to the edge, like that. See how it does that? Just follows right on out. Pretty cool, huh? Okay, that's the end of our little cloth. Next week, we'll go on to some other ways to handle mitered squares. Have a great week, girls.